Everybody, welcome to Dad Talk. Today we are at Turning Point in Tampa, Florida, and I am sitting here with Mr. Chris Buskirk. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah. So I was telling you, I was looking at the list of speakers for today's event, and I was going through it, and then I came by your name, and I went to research it, and the first thing I saw on your page was husband and father, and that caught my eye right away. Chris, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I live in Arizona. I'm the publisher and the editor of a web magazine called American Greatness, greatness.com. And that is not the first thing, as you noticed in my bio, because even though it's my profession, and I think it's important, it's not the most important thing. And I tried to spotlight that, which is something, interestingly enough, that you picked up on.
Yeah, so we do a lot of dad talk. Let's talk about being a husband, man. What's being a husband mean to you?
Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. That is my mantra for being a husband, and that's the marriage covenant is a picture of the covenant between Christ and His church, and that means a lot. It really informs the way I think about family in general. But the family started when I married my wife 20 years ago, and that's my through point, and that's sort of how I try to figure out what it means to be a good husband.
Yeah, I think God put us here, men, to back up our women, and our women to back up our men in that traditional family role. It works. Unfortunately, we don't see much of it anymore. The nuclear family has really been under attack, and it seems it's especially a tool for the left. Why do you think that nuclear family came under such scrutiny and became a target?
Because it's a source of independence, and it's a source of power that's outside of the state. And to the extent that you can break down family bonds, then you can control people and you can exploit them more. I mean, if you atomize people by breaking up their personal relationships, the core relationship in everybody's life is their nuclear family. But it's not. We talk about the nuclear family a lot because it is that sort of basic building block of society. But the multi-generational family is important too. Your grandparents, your cousins, your grandchildren, and so forth. Those bonds got broken up. The nuclear families get broken up, and as people, as those things break up, they're not able to hold even friendships with non-family members very well. And when people are all alone and they're isolated, you can manipulate them and you can use them, and that's what we see going on.
And it really has been since Black Lives Matter had on their website that's part of their goal is to really, destroy the nuclear family, that the nuclear family has been the topic of discussion. But we go back to the LBJ administration and the policies that were implemented there were really, they're anti-family, and they incentivize women to leave their husbands, or to say, hey, I'll be your husband, I'm the government, or the government can be your child's father. Mm-hmm. So after all these generations, and there's been articles written, why is it just now that their politicians are really taking note, like, hey, look, we got to look at what's happening in nuclear families?
I'm not even sure that. I mean, I appreciate your optimism. I'm not even sure they're picking up on it now. There's a little bit of lip service to it, but when I see what politicians think is important, they may think talking about that's in the top 5 things. They don't think acting on it is in the top 5 things. And even now, I just see that there is always a reason why family issues are just off the list of what we're actually going to do something about. Mm-hmm. And that's something. I'm in the main session here with Charlie. I was just talking about this exact issue, which is we have this situation in the country right now where fewer families are being formed. It's like this. They call it family formation, right? It's really just people getting married. Mm-hmm. Fewer families are being formed. It's happening later in life, and fewer people are having fewer children, if they have any children at all. And so, as the data came out about 3-4 weeks ago, the total fertility in this rate in this country, that is the number of children a woman will have in her lifetime, is at the lowest it's ever been in American history. It's at 1.64, 1.65. The replacement rate is 2.1. Right? We are way below the replacement rate, and that tells us something about the way people think about the future, and it tells us something about their present too. People's present is precarious in a lot of ways. They are atomized from other people. They're alienated, and they are not optimistic or hopeful about the future. And that's reflected in the fact that hopeful people get married and have kids. People who have a sense of despair don't. And that's where we find ourselves in this country right now.
Being in the media yourself and with this publication, you was talking a second ago about the lip service that we get sometimes, but no action behind it. How many times have you seen somebody tell you something on the publication and we don't see any action behind those words.
Look, a lot.
Thank you.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. And I will tell you that when you think about elected officials, there are a handful of them. Just call one out, like Josh Hawley, I think is very good on this issue.
Josh.
Like he wants to do things, and he tries to do things, he gets stopped. So I don't, like, if I have criticism, it's not for somebody like that. But then there's other people for whom it's just not a priority. Like, it's sort of notionally out there, like, yeah, that would be good. But, like, there's a lot of things that would be good in life. And it's just, you have to prioritize always on these things as a politician or office holder. What are you actually going to do? And there's very few where they actually want to do something about it. So they come back, well, I couldn't get people to go along with me because you didn't work on it. Because it wasn't something that you thought was that important.
Go ahead.
One thing that we've seen a lot is almost this glorifying of single motherhood,
Yeah.
where we have to support single mothers. There's charities just for single mothers, where being a single mother has become something that society has wrapped their arms around, when really we look at what the statistics are behind single motherhood. We have increase in criminal, like, delinquency, and prison inmates are raised by single mothers largely. So we don't want to villainize single mothers, but at the same time, it's like our authors, the publications, the research, they don't want to show the truth behind that. Why is that?
It's fun you bring this up, because I will, in my speaking or writing or tweeting or whatever, from time to time I'll bring up the issue of motherhood, and that's a good thing. Motherhood, okay? Now, my followers and readers or whatever, being what they are, they generally like it. I will always get pushback on this. And somehow glorifying motherhood is fascist. That's bad. You can't do that. But if you attach the prefix single to it, well, that's great.
It's great, yep.
But God forbid that you think that a mother who's married to the father of her children, well, that's no good. Now that you're pushing the patriarchy or something, and that's a sickness that is really endemic in our society, and it's where it comes from. We could talk about that forever. The fact is that it's bad. It's bad for the mothers. It's bad for the fathers. It's bad for the kids. And then when you take that one little society, right, the family, and it breaks apart. Now do that 1,000,000 times, and it's bad for the entire society. It's bad for the whole country.
Absolutely. So, Chris, tell us a little bit about your publication and some of the things that you guys really push on there.
Yeah, so American Greatness, I was telling you earlier, American Greatness was started 5 years ago. We just passed our 5th anniversary. We're a web magazine. We focus on politics and culture. We think that those two things are intimately intertwined.
Absolutely, yeah.
Politics isn't just, well, what's the election, who's running, or what was the horse race poll that was published this morning. It's a lot more than that. It's about it's kind of like the Francis Schaeffer said in the 60s, how then shall we live? He was a famous evangelical theologian. And that's really the fundamental questions we're trying to address, which is, who are we as a people? Who are we as Americans? And how do we make the country better? And what does that actually look like? And like this was a big theme in our talk with Charlie, is, we can talk about these things up at 100,000 feet, but what are the actual things we want to have happen? And one of the things I talk about all the time is more families and more kids. And by the way, let me touch the third rail. More moms who can stay home with their kids and don't have to work.
Yeah.
Right?
Or dads. Melissa's husband stays at home with the
I have a
kids.
stay-at-home husband.
Yeah, look, this is always the thing, is I always say, like, keep families intact and have a parent home with the kids.
Yes.
I don't really care who it is.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's the mom, not always.
Right.
And but the point is that you have an intact family and you have a parent raising the kids.
Right.
I've got 4 kids. I can tell you, as you guys probably know, raising children is a job. It takes a lot of work. It's also like the most rewarding thing that you're going to do with your life.
But I really appreciate hearing that you was talking about the difference between motherhood and single motherhood and some of the pushback you get. It seems like you're trying to touch on these topics, but the media, they shy away from this so much. What responsibility do you think the mainstream media has in some of these issues that we're discussing here today?
Well, it's a lot, and it's not only the media, right? It's all of the, what I would call the sense-making institutions in our country. It's, it's media, it's the education establishment, whether you're talking about primary and secondary, you're talking about colleges and universities, it's government. There is almost unanimity among all of these sense-making institutions to push this agenda, to push this view of the world. That, you know, when it boils down to things like, you know, people criticize me because I'm in favor of motherhood, but they want to lionize single motherhood. Well, I don't know, if you tell people that that is the pinnacle, people are going to listen to you. Some people will be persuaded by that, and you know, single motherhood is kind of like the Sheryl Sandberg book, you know, the CEO of Facebook. She writes this book, Lean In, and she's, well, you know, I've got these kids, or you have with these Hollywood women, or like, I'm a single mom. Yeah, like, you made $20 million last year too. Like,
right,
your life isn't the same as the woman who's, like, you know, a clerk at Walmart, who's working at a cubicle at a plumbing contractor, right? That's really hard for that person, that single mom, to raise those kids, and the kids wind up being left on their own. They wind up being raised by the state through the schools, which is why you have this big push for early childhood education. It's not about education; it's free daycare, and it's about getting the kids into the state system early. And I can't remember who said this. I'm just going to give the quote, and I'll just disclose it's not mine, but like, don't be surprised when you send your children to the Romans for their education and they come back acting like Romans. Right? It's the same thing. Like, you send your kids to state education, they're going to come back thinking whatever the state wants them to think.
Yeah. You know, I used to not be an actual fan of homeschooling. I thought that kids needed to go to public school and learn these lessons. I'm going to tell you, I've learned in the past couple of years, like, we need our parents teaching our kids more than ever right now. Some of the things that are being taught to our kids inside the education system, it's scary.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be a place where kids went to learn and cultivate these principles, and it's just not there, man. I mean, what we used to see in the more so in the colleges, it's made its way even into the elementary, middle, it's in through all of it. So we need to get our parents back in the lives of their kids, teaching them these lessons, because if you don't, someone will.
Right, that's exactly right.
And the media definitely has a part to play in that, and getting that knowledge out there. Chris, tell everybody where they can find your online.
Sure. So American Greatness, our web magazine is at amgreatness.com, or you can find me on Twitter at the Chris Buskirk.
All right, man. Hey, Chris, thank you so
Thanks
much,
a lot.
man.
It's a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Hey, everybody. Eric Carroll here. Thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of Dad Talk Today. While we fight for you, we would ask for you to please help fight for us. Like, subscribe to our channel, and ring that bell so you get notifications every time we go live. There's also super chats, patreon.com/dadtalktoday, and other ways you can support our channel. Thank you for being here, and we will see you next time.